We're breaking down the Bills' draft picks of running back James Cook, linebacker Terrell Bernard, and wide receiver Khalil Shakir today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Monday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, your first watch every day. And it is good to be back on the YouTube channel after not being able to post all week last week just due to awful, and I mean awful, internet at my Airbnb that I was at in Vegas. So that was disappointing, but here we are. We're back. We're back into our normal rhythm of things, and you could expect the Locked On Bills podcast to be both in audio and video form moving forward. Well, the NFL draft is in the books, and we need to respond to what happened the rest of the way. We already broke down the Bills' first-round pick, Kaiir Elam, the cornerback from Florida, but we're going to start working on the rest of the draft class today. We'll cover the next three picks: James Cook, Terrell Bernard, Khalil Shakir, and then tomorrow we will get through the rest of the draft picks, but I want to give them all their due justice. Anytime the Bills draft a player, we learn something, right? We find out some things about what they're prioritizing in terms of players and prospects, but also the roster, right? We get a lot of clues about the way Brandon Beane views his roster and what the short and long-term needs are. And so I like to really do a good job of breaking down these draft picks. So we're going to do the next three today. We'll talk about the background of each player, their college career, size, and athleticism, do a little scouting report. I'll tell you how I feel about the pick, and then we'll talk about their role and impact. So let's get into it. The first player is James Cook, running back, Georgia. The Bills' second-round pick, number 63 overall. James Cook is 22 years old. He turns 23 in September. He's from Miami, Florida, and he started playing football when he was 5 years old. He has 6 siblings, including Dalvin Cook, who is the star running back for the Minnesota Vikings, and a lot of other athletic backgrounds within his siblings, within his family. He lettered in track and football in high school, was a 4-star recruit. He had all the offers that you could ever want as a football player. He chose to go to the University of Georgia, and he had a nice career. He was used in a number of ways there as a running back and wide receiver, and he doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires. He only had 230 carries for his career, 67 catches. You know, Georgia had a number of really, really good running backs that they got involved, and James Cook kind of fit into that. But, you know, he's not a guy that was like the guy, the featured component of their backfield, because nobody was. They got a number of players involved. For his career, 230 carries, 1,503 yards, 14 rushing touchdowns for his career. That's an average of 6.5 yards per carry, which is very impressive considering he played in the SEC. Had 67 catches for 730 yards and 6 touchdowns. And while I talked about how they got a number of backs going at Georgia, he led the team in 2021 in all-purpose yards with 1,012. And that was on the national championship team last year at Georgia. The most productive player that they had in terms of all-purpose yards, James Cook. Let's talk about his size and athleticism. He's 5'11", which is the 57th percentile among running backs. 199 pounds, which is the 15th percentile. 9 3/8 in the hand size, that's 60th percentile. Ran a 4.42 40-yard dash, which is the 88th percentile. A 1.54 10-yard split, the 69th percentile. 33-inch vertical jump, which is the 31st percentile. And a 10-foot 4-inch broad jump, which is the 84th percentile. So he's a little bit tall and slender, right? This isn't a super stocky, big running back, but he's got really good speed, good explosive speed, as you can see there by the athletic testing numbers. So a little scouting report here on James Cook. Things that I really love about his game. I'll start with the receiving ability. Very productive receiver at Georgia with a skill set that translates wonderfully to the NFL. Only had one drop in 74 targets, averaged 10.7 yards per catch, 10.5 yards after the catch per reception. So you talk about the Bills needing more yards after catch. Well, this is a guy that can do it. This is a player that can get involved in the screen game. You can ask him to run routes out of the backfield. And not only is he a good route runner that can catch the football, but he's very dynamic with the ball in his hands to create offense for himself. Very reliable. Like I said, only one drop in 74 targets. Over 90% of his targets in college were a completion, and you love that. There's just a lot of consistency and reliability when they threw the football to James Cook. And this guy, he can run legit routes. You can ask him to run routes out of the backfield, but you can move him out to the slot and he can run routes there as well. So a very versatile receiving threat. Has good speed, which is something we know this Bills running back room is missing. And he'll add the explosive component to the backfield where he can really test the perimeter and has legit speed, right? A legit second gear when he has the ball in his hands. Love his footwork and agility. He's a guy that can make dynamic cuts, plant well outside of his frame, and good control through his cuts. A very agile football player. And he's a nuanced runner, especially on outside zone runs. He understands pace. He understands how to press the line of scrimmage to move the second level and attack creases. And he's not a guy that just gets the ball and gets to top speed. He knows how to vary his pace and work with rhythm to attack and press with good timing within the relationship of the play design. And I'll say this about him. He has impressive contact balance for his frame. 5'11", 199, that's not necessarily the type of frame that suggests he's going to be a really good between the tackles runner with ideal contact balance. But I'm impressed with his ability to win after contact for his size. A guy that is somewhat slender in his lowers, right? Thin from the waist down. He sustains himself well through contact. And I think part of that is because he's very agile and he does a good job of setting up defenders that are trying to tackle him. So here's a little fun stat because you know that I've been down on Breece Hall, former Bills running back Breece Hall, and his contact balance. Let's compare some metrics here. James Cook, 5'11", 199. For his career, 3.59 yards after contact per attempt in the SEC, including 3.91 yards in 2021. Contrast that to Breece Hall, 5'11", 217 pounds. So same height, but Breece has 18 pounds on him. But Breece is only 3.22 yards after contact per attempt in the Big 12, which is a defense optional conference where tackling is more than optional. It's kind of a joke when you watch Big 12 defenders try to tackle. And then his yards after contact per attempt in 2021 was 2.83. So Breece has more than a full yard. James Cook has more than a full yard over Breece when it comes to 2021 yards after contact per attempt. And again, a major contrast in conferences. And this is something that I said, if you want Breece Hall in the first round, just pick James Cook later. That's exactly what the Buffalo Bills did. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Joe, Breece Hall's got 18 pounds on him, and he'll be a better short yardage back. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't think either of these players are good short yardage options or really players you want to pound between the tackles. But I think James Cook does a better job of pressing the line of scrimmage, and Breece Hall, for the size advantage that he has, he runs tall. He doesn't do a very good job of leveraging himself in short yardage to convert. So I get off that soapbox for a second, but I think that's a really interesting contrast between those two players. I love that James Cook takes care of the football. He's only fumbled twice in college, once every 149 touches. That's very good. And I also love that he's not overworked, only 230 carries and 67 touches coming out of, or 67 catches coming out of college. So just over 330 career touches from scrimmage at the college level. Now, the concerns with James Cook, the frame, like we've talked about, is this a guy that's really going to help you between the tackles? I don't think so. And so I think you're always going to need a complementary player to go with James Cook. Now, the good news is the type of complementary skill set that you're going to need to go with James Cook is not hard to find. You're looking for a squatty back that can bang between the tackles. You can find those players every year, 4th, 5th, 6th round. So I don't know that James Cook is ever going to be your lead bell cow back. I don't think the Bills want that anyways. But he gives you the things that are hard to find in terms of speed, vision, receiving ability. And then, look, is this guy going to help you in pass protection? That's probably not going to be his strength. And so when he's on the field, there's a little bit of predictability that exists there. You know that the Bills are going to want to get him going, pushing the edges as a runner, throwing the football to him, right? Not really a between the tackles runner in terms of short yardage. Not necessarily guys you're going to love in pass protection. So there is some predictability that comes with his skill set, but I like his skill set, and I like how the Bills can build a backfield tandem of complementary players to carry the load that they're looking for out of the backfield. So how do I feel about this pick? I'm very pleased. Very, very pleased. This is the type of skill set that has been missing from this Bills backfield in terms of speed, receiving ability, and yards after catch. And I'm not sure that he's, like I said, he's ever going to be a lead back, but I think he can immediately be a 10 to 15 touch a game guy that you can pair with Devin Singletary to get the running back production that you want. I'm very comfortable with the value of the pick. The Bills got him at 63. If you go to my Bills specific big board, I had him at number 68. So that's a very appropriate value. And I love that he could take something off of Josh Allen. And he doesn't take the short yardage carries off of Josh Allen. But when Josh is working off script, he'll be a really nice option to check the football down to. When the Bills are getting too high safeties and the Bills are just looking to get completions in the passing game, perfect option. You can get him going in the screen game. And so there are things that he can do to take things off of Josh Allen and obviously help Josh Allen. And I certainly love having a cost control player that will have a notable role on this football team for the next 4 seasons, especially at running back. So I think he's immediately the RB2 that gets 10, 12 touches per game and adds a skill set that is currently missing from this offense. I think this is a great pick by Brandon Beane. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. It's BetOnline, and that's where the game starts. Let's move on to Terrell Bernard, linebacker from Baylor. The Bills' 3rd-round draft choice, number 89 overall. He's 22 years old. He turns 23 in May. He's from LaPorte, Texas, has 5 siblings, so another guy with a big family. He only played football in high school, linebacker and running back. 3-star recruit. He originally committed to Houston, but Matt Rule flipped him to Baylor when he came over from Temple. Very accomplished in the classroom. He has a degree in health, kinesiology, and leisure studies, and he already has a master's degree in sports management. Let's take a look at his college career. 45 games, 31 starts, productive player, 317 tackles, and a lot of production behind the line of scrimmage, 31.5 tackles for loss, 16.5 sacks. That's actually 3rd most in the history of the Baylor program. 12 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. Does have some injuries to be mindful of. Missed 2 games in 2017 with a broken foot. He missed all but 2 games in 2017 with a broken foot. Missed the final 4 games in 2020 with a shoulder injury. It was a torn labrum. And then he missed 1 game in 2021 with a knee injury that required his knee to be scoped. When it comes to his size and athleticism, he's 6 foot in 7/8, which is the 16th percentile for linebackers, 224 pounds, which is the 4th percentile for linebackers, 30.25-inch arms, 3rd percentile for linebackers, 73-inch wingspan, the 2nd percentile for linebackers, and 9 5/8 on the hand size, which is 52nd percentile. So he doesn't really give you much in the way of size. He's not tall, he's not big, he's not long. He's got good hand size, but very small linebacker that does not have length. Athletically, very good athlete. 4.59 40, that's 83rd percentile. 1.57 10-yard split, 73rd percentile. 36.5-inch vertical jump, that's 73rd percentile. 10 foot 3-inch broad jump, 82nd percentile. 4.25 short shuttle, 64th percentile. 7.03 3-cone, 66th percentile. 22 bench press reps, which is 52nd percentile. So an above average athlete through and through here. So doesn't give you size or length, but he gives you great athleticism. My scouting report here on Terrell Bernard out of Baylor, the Bills' 3rd-round pick. You like that he gives you speed and range. You know, this guy definitely has the ability to cover ground, pursue the football outside the tackles, good range and coverage, comfortable pedaling and working backwards. Those are all things that you like about him. He's a phenomenal blitzer. Love his ability to work into gaps. He's got wonderful short area quickness, and he's very slippery. He's a guy that when he works into gaps and he has, kind of the hip-to-hip relationship with blockers, he's going to slip on by them. And just overall very good ability to slip and undercut blocks. I think he's a good processor. He's an urgent football player that's always around the ball. His pursuit effort is outstanding. I think he has good upside in coverage. Obviously, a lot of range, can cover distances, good processor, cues the backfield, knows what he's doing. The concerns are that he's small, he lacks length, and he has a lot of missed tackles, 15% missed tackle rate for his career at Baylor. And when you have such a limited wingspan, you don't have much of a tackle radius, and you're going to struggle. And that also shows up when he's trying to stack and shed blocks. So he's slippery around the edges of blocks, but if he's going to be a take-on player, take on blocks, stack, shed, peek, disengage, it's not really going to be his game. So there's definitely size concerns that show up in how he tackles and how he gets off of blocks. Now, you think this is going to be a really good special teams player. I think that he's got a nice pedigree to do that. But I find it to be very interesting that he was never part of the kickoff team at Baylor, which I think would be a major part of what he'll be asked to do in the NFL. So how do I feel about this pick? This one was kind of a head scratcher. And I'm going to say a lot of great things about pretty much all the Bills picks, and I have things that I like about this pick, but this was a head scratcher for me. Projecting his game to the NFL has some challenges. There's not a lot of guys that are built like him that have had very good careers, especially when you consider his very poor length and wingspan. So I kind of have some questions about how he fits into this defense. To me, he's more of a guy that you can trust to do the things you ask Matt Milano to do than the things you ask Tremaine Edmunds to do. And Milano is the player you have locked up for the next several seasons, and Tremaine Edmunds is the expiring contract. So you probably saw my initial reaction to this that, made its way around Twitter from our broadcast at the Draft Network. They clipped it and put it on social media. And a lot of my concern there was, all right, if you're drafting a player that you think can step in for Tremaine Edmunds and be his replacement if you're not able to bring him back, considering Tremaine's on a expiring contract, I don't think this guy has a chance to do that role. I don't see him as a Mike linebacker. I don't see him as a guy that you love taking on contact and playing downhill. He's a gap shooter, guy with range and coverage upside. More of a matchup linebacker as a weak side player, not as a downhill Mike. So that's where I kind of got hung up on this initially. Now, if the Bills do plan on introducing some scheme versatility, which is something I've been calling for, and you want to play more 3 linebacker sets, okay, this is interesting. He can kind of be a slot linebacker hybrid and be that big nickel defender. And if you want to put 3 linebackers on the field, this could be that guy that gives you a complementary skill set. And we've talked about how the Bills could do more 3 linebacker stuff this year, considering how they matched up against New England late in the season. And we have an entire AFC East that's going to be predicated on running the football. You have a lot of teams in the conference that are going to want to run the football. Like we've mentioned, the AFC North is a run division. Colts, Titans, they're going to want to run the football. And you want to host playoff games in January in Western New York. And that's going to be about running the ball and stopping the run in a lot of ways. And then we've also talked about that Josh Allen's your quarterback. Teams are going to want to keep him on the sidelines, which means clock control, run the football. So we could see more 3 linebacker sets from the Bills. And I think this is a player that gives them some appeal to still maintain their nickel principles that they like because he can play in coverage, but also give them a guy that they can ask to trigger and shoot gaps and play downhill in that capacity. Again, I don't think he's much of a take-on player. So I started to ask myself, is this the Shaq Thompson player for this defense? Referring back to the Carolina Panthers. They had Luke Kuechly. They had Thomas Davis. And then they still drafted Shaq Thompson in the first round. I wonder if this is the archetype that they're looking for with this pick. Where, yeah, you're still going to play a lot of 2 linebacker stuff, but if you want to go 3, this is the player that can come in and be your Shaq Thompson to your Luke Kuechly and your Thomas Davis, or in the Bills' case, your complement to Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. So I think this could be really interesting in terms of how it could affect scheme versatility, which I think the Bills need to consider some of that on defense. So projecting his role and his impact, I think he comes in and he challenges Tyrel Dotson as the LB3. I think he helps you on special teams. You can get him involved as a blitzer, which go back to 2020 with A.J. Klein, they blitzed him a ton. Maybe you ask Terrell Bernard to do some of those things. So I have some level of confusion with the pick, but there's a path here where I can really get interested in how he can affect the Bills' scheme on defense. And those things are very, very, very appealing to me. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. You can throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks and make sure everyone has a bar so you're fueled up for your summer adventures. And the best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. And with Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. And all you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy while actually enjoying doing it. And if you haven't tried the Puffs, you got to try them. They're awesome. They come in crazy flavors like churro and banana cream pie. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro? And they're healthy for you, only 140 calories. And you could try mix boxes that'll give you a mix of regular Built Bars and Puffs. So much going on. You got to check them out over at Built.com. They're healthy for you, like I mentioned. They're delicious, great flavors. New flavors coming out all the time. So check out Built.com often. And we do have a deal for you. You can use our promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off at Built.com. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. One more player to get to today, the Bills' 5th-round pick, because they traded their 4th-round pick to move up for Kaiir Elam, and then they traded back a couple of times in the 2nd round to get the additional draft capital necessary to move up, and one of those moves up was for Khalil Shakir, wide receiver out of Boise State. 5th-round pick, number 148 overall. He was number 64 on my Bills-specific big board. Great value with this pick. This is one of my favorite picks the Bills made in the entire draft. Let's talk about his background. 22 years old. He turns 23 next February, so he just kind of turned 22. He's from Murrieta, California. His father was a master sergeant in the Marines. He moved around a lot. One of 4 siblings. He lived in Hawaii and Japan, and then in 6th grade, his family moved to Southern California where they settled in. Played wide receiver, running back, and safety in high school. four-star recruit. He turned down all the Pac-12 schools to go to Boise State. Had a good career there. He led the team in receiving in each of the last 2 seasons. And for his career, has 208 catches for 2,878 yards, 20 touchdowns, and that's 13.8 yards per completion. Let's talk about his size and athleticism. He's 5'11 and 7/8, which is the 29th percentile. 196 pounds, which is the 36th percentile. 29-inch arms, that's the 1st percentile. So doesn't have a lot of length or wingspan. 70 3/8 on the wingspan, that's the 2nd percentile. Does have good hand size, 9.5 inches. That's the 59th percentile. Ran a 4.43 40-yard dash. That's the 76th percentile. 1.49 10-yard split, which is the 92nd percentile. 38.5-inch vertical jump, which is the 84th percentile. 10-foot 4-inch broad jump, 72nd percentile. 4.21 short shuttle, 55 or 55th percentile, 7.28 3-cone, 9th percentile. And 16 bench press reps, which is the 64th percentile. So, okay in terms of height and weight, doesn't give you anything in terms of length, and then an overall above average athlete with good quickness. You can really appreciate that 1.49 10-yard split in the 38.5-inch vertical jump. My little scouting report here on Khalil Shakir is that I love the route running. I love the body control. He's a deceptive route runner. He's fluid in and out of breaks. He never tips his routes. Very clean with his ability to run routes, and he's a good separator. I think he has good hands. They're confident hands, and you see him catch the football away from his frame. You see him make wonderful adjustments to the football. I love his toughness. He's a guy that's super competitive. He's versatile. He's interchangeable in terms of playing in the slot and playing outside. He did play 62% from the slot at Boise State, where he'll probably spend a lot of his time in the NFL, but he's not one of those slot-only players. I think he'll be best from the slot, but he's not a slot-only. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Good punt returner, 27 career punt returns, 21 fair catches, so 48 opportunities to field a punt in a game in college. He did have 2 muffs in 2018, but none since. And when you think about the consistency that he did develop fielding punts, when you think about his body control and ball skills, I think he's going to be a good punt returner in the NFL. The concerns with Shakir, short arms. There are some instances where he does resolve to body catching, where you'll see some drops pop up. At a underwhelming drop rate in 2021, 11.5%, 8.8% for his career. So it's up a little this season. But I do think, given his very modest wingspan, that there could be some drop issues, although I do think he has strong, confident hands. I think he's a decent yards after catch player. And he's a guy that can win down the field, but he's not a take the top off the defense guy. This isn't a guy that's going to be a player that just runs by coverage, if that makes sense. He has good speed. Don't get me wrong, he has good speed, but I'm not sure that we're going to look at him as a player that is a consistent field stretcher, right? I think he's more of a technician from the slot with good athleticism. Don't get me wrong, he's a good athlete, but he's not a burner down the field. So how do I feel about this pick? I love it. Probably my favorite pick in the draft for the Bills. Love the route running. Love the versatility as a receiver. Love how competitive he is. Big-time intangibles guy. High football character. He's a process guy through and through. Great family background. Projecting his role to this football team, I think he's day one, the Bills' starting punt returner, which is a big deal. The Bills need that player. I know he doesn't have a ton of experience, but he has nearly 50 attempts fielding punts in college. And the Bills don't have a whole lot of other candidates, right? It's pretty much the same guys as last year. Isaiah McKenzie, Marquez Stevenson, maybe Jamison Crowder, but I think Khalil Shakir, it's his job to lose, to be completely honest with you. So I think he'll be a big-time factor in that capacity in year one, develop as a receiver, and I think he can potentially be the featured slot in 2023 that's interchangeable. I think he's just a perfect fit for his style as a receiver, what we've seen work with Josh Allen, how you project him to this offense. I think it's an all-around perfect fit, a plus value for Brandon Beane. Like I said, number 64 on my Bills-specific big board. The Bills got him at 148 overall, so I love this selection. So there you have it. We've broken down the Bills' next 3 picks. We're going to get the next 4 tomorrow. So we'll put a ribbon on recapping the players that they drafted and my overall thoughts on them. Wednesday we'll do herd mentality. So if you have questions about the draft specifically, I'd love to kind of keep that draft specific as we recap what happened. Shoot in your herd mentality questions. You can do that on Twitter. Send me a DM at the Joe Marino. I'd love to get to as many as I can on Wednesday. And then we'll do some other fun content the rest of the week that incorporates these new players the Bills drafted. So a lot to look forward to this week on the podcast. Good to be back on YouTube. Would love it if you took a second to subscribe on YouTube and leave a comment, like this video. All of that is so helpful. And of course, I appreciate everyone that listens in the regular podcasting mediums, and would love if you took a second to rate, review, and share in that regard as well. Good to be back in the normal rhythm of things, and we have so much to talk about the rest of the way this offseason. So stay plugged in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.